Yes, yes, that's
Recording,
okay with
and
me.
there we go. Cool. So welcome everybody, and this is today's session. We are hosting Evelyn Saavedra. So thank you very much, Evelyn, for being here. We really appreciate you taking the time out to speak with us. Just so you guys are aware, Evelyn has, I think she's really at the start of her career. You know, I think she has so many more wonderful years ahead of her. And I think, you know, her story is uniquely special to us because, as she was just talking about a few minutes before we started the recording, is that Evelyn was actually a student at South Miami Middle School. And I thought that's such a unique situation to bring her in, and kind of ties everything in at home here a lot. So just like we've been doing in all of our other sessions, I'm going to turn it over to you, Evelyn, and you start by just sharing with us what you currently do for a living in the field of music, and how you came to have that journey.
Wonderful. Okay, so currently I am pursuing a performance-based career in opera. I'm a soprano, so I'm the highest category of a female singer. You may not know this because I didn't know this at your age, but maybe some of you do. There are different categories within each voice type, particularly in opera. And I am what you would call a lyric soprano. So within the category of that high voice tessitura, I am sort of the lower middle. So I'm not, I don't know if you guys have ever seen a Queen of the Night video or anything like that from the Magic Flute. I don't have the super high extension. I'm more comfortable in my middle, and I pop up there once in a while. So that's what I'm currently pursuing, and what my are focused on. But I have recently started teaching as well. I have a small private studio here in Miami, Florida, and I just finished my second semester teaching at Florida International University, teaching in the theater department, teaching a vocal skills for the actor course. So it's focused in musical theater repertoire. And then additionally, I just finished my first semester teaching at New World School of the Arts, private voice in the musical theater department as well for the college division. So I've just started my teaching journey pretty recently. I mean, I had been doing teaching prior to this year, but this was a more formalized kind of thing that I started this year, because I found myself at home, and in between gigs or in between contracts, I was having a lot of free time. So, you know, and it's a great way to gain experience in the field in another aspect and sort of become more well-rounded. And you'll see some, if any of you teach, or if any of you tutor, or if any of you do any of that, it really helps you kind of hone in your skills if you're able to teach them. So it actually is very helpful and beneficial to me as a performer to be able to help and aid other people find their voice and free their voice and all of that stuff. So that's what I'm currently doing. How I started. I don't come from a musical family whatsoever. All of my family members are either doctors, engineers, or architects. So it was a surprise to a lot of my family members, particularly my mother, who's tone deaf. I mean, I'm not kidding. She's very tone deaf. That I could sing, and it was really thanks to an elementary school teacher who found out that I could sing, and I turns out I really enjoyed it. And then that elementary school music teacher helped me prepare and suggested that I apply to a magnet arts school. And then I ended up getting into South Miami, and it was like one of the best things that happened to me. I really, really enjoyed my time there, and it really helped solidify a lot of my basic understanding of music and my voice, and how to work together in an ensemble, and how to learn music. And I enjoyed it so much that then I applied to several magnet arts high schools, and I ended up choosing to go to New World School of the Arts, which is where I teach now, but in the college division. So I went to New World School of the Arts in high school, and that was an even more intense, focused program, because now I was having a weekly voice lesson, which I was not having at South Miami. And it was a much more intense program. It was very, very, very much more focused. I enjoyed it. So I wasn't really quite sure when I started high school if I wanted to do this professionally, but several things kind of led me along the way. And I didn't always sing opera. You know, it wasn't always something that I liked or enjoyed. But the more I got into singing, and the more that I studied voice privately, and the more that I learned about my voice and learned about the capabilities, particularly one-on-one with a teacher, the more I started to discover certain things in my voice that were really cool. And I was surprised, but I liked it. And then I saw my first opera when I was at New World. I think I might have been like a junior or maybe even a senior at New World. And by this time I knew that I wanted to do music, but my connection is unstable. Can you guys hear me?
Yes.
You can hear me?
Yes. Yeah. Totally fine.
Okay, great. Sorry, I said connection unstable. So anyways, I wasn't really sure. It wasn't like I got to high school and said, I want to be an opera singer. I want to get a music degree. I want to, you know what I mean? But I kind of figured it out as I went along, and I dabbled in a lot of different types of music. So I dabbled in classical music in my choir, high school choir in South Miami, and then in my voice lesson, obviously. But then like junior and senior year, I became the jazz singer with our high school jazz band. We have a really fantastic, we have a really, really fantastic jazz band and jazz program at New World. And jazz is something that I always loved. I'm a big fan of Frank Sinatra, and a big fan of Ella Fitzgerald and Nat King Cole and all of those crooners. And so for 2 years, I was very hardcore into jazz, and I was singing a lot of jazz with my high school jazz band. And it was something that I really, really enjoyed. And then I kind of felt like I was at a divide. I was like, well, I can either go into a more commercial kind of thing, or I could stay in this classical vein. And this other vein really attracted me for a lot of different reasons. I felt like the span of my capabilities would grow as a singer if I was able to develop my classical voice. And I could always go back to the pop, or I could go back to the jazz, or I could go back to musical theater or whatever. But I really wanted to see what the full capacity of my voice would be. That really intrigued me. And then junior or senior year, I went to see an opera, and I was like flabbergasted. I was just in awe. I could not believe that people could do this. You know, people were singing in a huge space with like 50 other players without a mic, and you could hear them crystal clear, and they were singing for 2.5 hours, and it was just very grandiose. And the sets and the dancing and the singing and the chorus and everything was just like a spectacle. And it was like love at first sight. And I had danced for a long time before that. I was a dancer. So I knew that I liked the spectacle of performing, and something like jazz or pop was great, but I just loved being on stage and just being in that kind of classical sphere. So I decided to go for it, and I decided to apply to a formal classical music program. And I ended up applying to for college. Yeah. So now we're talking about going into college.
Can you pause for a second, just because it's such a close time frame from them? What elementary school was it that encouraged you?
Oh, yeah. So, man, my elementary school music teacher, I love him so much. He's still at my elementary school. Wow. And we're friends on Facebook. So I know what he's up to. I went to Charles R. Hadley Elementary School. And my music teacher's name was Mr. Gill. And Mr. Gill was a trombone player. So that was his primary instrument. He was a UM graduate. And the way that he discovered how I could sing was that he was really interested in developing, it was like his first year out of school, and it was his first teaching job. He was really interested in building this music program that we didn't have. So it was like a Hispanic Heritage Day or one of those Black History Month things where everybody gets together and they perform at the school. And he wanted to build a children's choir. So he went along, all of his students, all of however many classrooms he dealt with, he went one by one and he asked us all to sing either Happy Birthday or Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And for some reason I was like, I'm gonna sing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star and it's gonna be great, you know? So I ended up singing Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star. And Mr. Gill, I will never forget this, because I've always been like a very good student. I've always been very responsible. Mr. Gill got really serious. And he said, okay, Evelyn, here's what we're gonna do. When your mother gets here, we need to talk. You need to bring her over and we need to have a conversation. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is terrible. I'm like failing music or something really bad is happening. And of course, like being a goody, I was like, Mom, like my music teacher's angry at me. Like he needs to talk to you. And my mom was obviously like, what the heck did you do? So she went and spoke to Mr. Gill, and Mr. Gill pretty much said, your daughter has potential for music. And I feel like she really enjoys it. And I think it's something that you should, foster and encourage, because she does have musical abilities. And so then after that, we got together a lot, and any time that there was a talent show or a Hispanic Heritage, or any time that there was going to be something, Mr. Gill always gave me the solo, or Mr. Gill, we used to do duets together. I used to do trios with other kids. So there was a lot of encouraging to be on stage and to develop my musical ear and learn repertoire and lots of things. I mean, we used to sing, I mean, you guys don't know who Chicago is, but we used to sing, stuff from the band Chicago. So I'm saying, I mean, it wasn't always opera. It wasn't for a very, very long time. And it usually isn't for a lot of people, because it's something that you tend to get into much later in life. You need a lot of vocal maturity and strength to be able to get into that repertoire. So yeah, I mean, cool. Where was I?
So then you decided to audition for college.
Yeah, I decided to audition for college and to pursue it. And for you might not know this, I didn't know this when I was in school. A bachelor's degree, which is what you get in college, is a four-year program for anybody. So it was a 4-year music degree centered on vocal performance. Should I get into what that looks like, or has that been covered by other?
Yeah.
Okay. So and then after that, that's really where I realized that I really did want to be a performer. Was very, very grateful and very thankful that I had a lot of amazing performance opportunities when I was there. And it really solidified inside of me that I really wanted to be a performer. Not so much a teacher, at least not then or not now. I definitely wanted to teach, but that my priority would be pursuing a performance career in opera. And I knew by the end of my 4 years that I had a lot more work to do vocally, and learning styles and learning languages and learning different things. So I applied for a master's degree, and that's what we're talking about now, is a graduate program. And for any performer, generally speaking, you need a minimum of 6 years in college. That's kind of the standard and it's the minimum. Some people do more, some people do a doctorate, some people go on and do an artist diploma. So they add maybe 2 or 3 more years, a total of 8 years. So it's really like going into a medical, like doing medicine or anything like that. It's a very long process and you have to have a lot of patience. But I applied to a lot of graduate programs. A lot of them were the top conservatories in the country. And I was really fortunate to get into one of them. And I got into a place called the Eastman School of Music. And if you guys know or have heard of Renee Fleming, she sang at the Super Bowl a couple years ago. She was like the first opera singer ever to sing at the Super Bowl, which was really cool. It was right during my Eastman audition. And I remember thinking, oh my God, this is so cool. She went to Eastman. And then she ended up coming to Eastman when I was there, and I ended up singing for her, which was really just like, it was like, you know, if you were a basketball player and you played with Michael Jordan or something, or Shaquille O'Neal or LeBron James or something like that. So it was really neat, really, really awesome experience for me. I did that for 2 years. And then I did a couple of summer music programs in between to keep myself occupied and start networking and start just having experiences in the summer. And it was through one of those programs that last summer that I graduated that I ended up getting a 1-year contract with an opera company in Pensacola, Florida, which is the panhandle of Florida, really close to Alabama. And I was there for a year as an artist in residence. So it was a quartet that was chosen from, I think, 500 or more applicants and auditions and stuff like that. And it was 1 soprano, me, 1 mezzo soprano, which is the same thing as alto, 1 baritone, and 1 tenor. And then we had a staff pianist that was also an artist in residence that was contracted as well. And what that artist in residence contract is, it's a young artist program. And the best way that I could describe it, it's kind of like when a doctor graduates, they don't start their practice, they don't start, you know, cutting up people in the surgery right away. They go through sort of interim period, which is usually called their residency, and they go and they shadow a doctor, and they cover that doctor, and they learn through those opportunities. And it's only after that they get the big, you know, they get the big surgeries and they start doing their own thing. So I did that for a year, and then I was contracted for a 2nd year. So I returned for 2 years right out of my master's degree. It was really wonderful. I got to meet a lot of industry people. I got to network. I got to be in 6 productions and learn 6 different roles, sing with an orchestra, be a part of an opera company. It was really awesome. And then because of my 2 years there, last year I was brought back to do what's called a main stage contract. And that's really the first, it's not a young artist contract. It's not like an artist in residence contract, which is sort of a, I don't want to say student level, but semi-professional level. I got a professional contract, which is like if I had been managed or anything, but I'm not currently managed. So I got my first big girl contract, and it was really amazing. I got to sing alongside Elizabeth Caballero, which, if you don't know who she is, she's like our hometown diva in Miami. She's like born, bred, raised in Miami, and she's had a wonderful career. She's worked all over the world. She works at the Met. I mean, she's just a really amazing example of what this community can produce in the arts. So she had the main role in this Spanish opera that we were doing called Florencia en el Amazonas. So she was Florencia, and I was like Florencia's BFF. So I was on stage all the time. I was so excited, and it was so inspiring to be with that person that I knew was from Miami, that I knew, you know, she was like the person that I aspired to be. So I did that, and then I came back home after that, and I have been doing rounds of auditions, applying to different places, and then and I got these 2 jobs at FIU and at New World, and that's kind of where I've been, with a few, you know, things here and there. I did an international competition 2 years ago in Poland. I was one of 40 singers selected worldwide to come to Poland and do this crazy big international competition. I had to prepare 3 full programs in Polish. I don't speak Polish. I was not trained to sing in Polish. That's not one of the languages that we are trained to sing in, but I did it. And it was crazy. It was televised, and it was broadcast on the Polish radio station, and it happens every 5 years. So I'm hoping to apply again in 5 years and do it again. It's kind of like the Olympics. Yeah, it was a really good experience. It was very difficult, but it was a good experience, and I learned a lot. So that's where I've been.
Fantastic. So I think that gives a great segue to go into the questions part. So the first question, I think you've really already answered it. But the first question was how did you really get into music? And I think that kind of was clear from your story. It really started in elementary school, and your elementary teacher just picked you based off of how you performed Twinkle, Twinkle, Little Star.
If it would not have been for that elementary school music teacher, if it would not have been for Mr. Go, I don't even know. I don't know.
And then a more specific question was, well, how did you begin your career, or how did you start your career? And you used a word that that keeps on popping up in some of these other interviews. And I would wonder if you would share a little bit more specifically about what that word means to you. And so the word you used was networking. So you said that when you went into your master's program, then from there you ended up auditioning for lots of other summer programs, and you also were doing a lot of networking to help set your future up. So for you, what does that word networking mean?
Networking is it's like building a web. You want to build a web around you of people and contacts and colleagues and friends that might be somehow related to this industry, if not directly, indirectly. Because I'm sure you guys have heard this already, it's a lot of it is who you know, because it gets to a point where the field can be kind of oversaturated, and what that means is there's a lot of us. There's a lot of us trying to do the same thing. So to a certain degree, I mean, you have to be good. You know what I mean? You have to check all the boxes. You have to be prepared. You have to study. You have to learn your music. You have to be a good colleague. You have to do all these things. But it gets to a point where everybody's checking those boxes, and everyone's singing well, and everyone's giving their best. And then it becomes a game of who you know. And that sounds scary, but it doesn't have to be, you know? So a lot of the times, if I'm auditioning for a role, if the person behind the desk knows me, or I know someone who he knows or she knows, and there's another person that sings just as well, that maybe fits the look or whatever, who has no connection to that company or that person who's judging me, the person is going to be more inclined to trust my word and trust my work, because somebody else is saying, hey, I know Evelyn. I know she's singing for you tomorrow. You know, she's a really great colleague. I just worked with her. She did a fantastic job. You can really trust her. Give her a chance. You know, as opposed to coming in with just, hi, my name is Evelyn. Here's what I'm singing today. I hope you like it. So it's always a plus. It's always like just a plus to have. And there's always last minute cancellations. People get sick. So a lot of these people in your network, in your web, will have a reason to say, who do I know? Who's in my web? Oh, Evelyn's in my web. Oh, I wonder what Evelyn's doing. Let me call her. So it's very important. And even getting into college, or even getting into school, or even whatever, it can be so small. If your next goal is to get into your high school musical, then you start building that network, and you start asking your friends, hey, who do you study with? Or, hey, what do you think about this? And then you have those people in your circle to help guide you and hopefully help open doors up. So that's what that means to me.
Very cool. Very cool. Yeah, I think it kind of goes in hand with two things. Like this morning, we were talking about the position of being a singer is that you have to generate your own market, and that's one of ways you're generating a market is you're generating your contacts out there. You're creating friends, creating relationships, like you said. And then to also tie into another interview we had before with Ricardo Lopez, actually. And he was saying, you know, that you call on people, you know, because at the end of the day, there comes a point where you're at the professional level where you're expecting to get paid, which means that time is money and people are money.
Absolutely.
And so it's very easy for people to want to stick to people that they know because they know the product, they know what's going to come out, they know the energy, and they know that the time and money that they put into that product is going to have a good return. So that's
yes, it's sort of like an insurance policy. And I don't remember who told me this along the way, but somebody told me, Evelyn, the average cost of putting a production together is over, at a small budget, over 50 grand, at a big budget, millions of dollars. Mm-hmm. Why am I going to put millions of dollars in you if I don't know you? I need some sort of insurance policy. You know what I mean? And that's where your network comes in to be like, she's okay, give her the money. You know what I mean? Trust her with all of that responsibility. She'll do a great job.
Awesome. Okay, next question. What would you say your creative process is like? So we know that by this point you're teaching, right? But you admittedly said your true goal, right, is to be on stage performing and out there. So I imagine that you're auditioning for different things at this point, or at least preparing for those auditions. So what's that creative process like for you? Like, what would you say you kind of look for? Do you go out there looking for different roles by various companies across the nation? Or do you think of like, hey, I would love to go to Michigan, so let me see what opera companies are in Michigan, and I'm going to apply to all kinds of shows there? Or what is your creative process like?
So you're asking how I go about seeking these opportunities?
Yeah.
Or how I go about studying music and like my creative process?
Okay. Yeah, that's what I think.
Okay, so how do I find these opportunities? So there's a thing called Yap Tracker, and it's a thing
called what?
Yap Tracker.
Yap.
YAP Tracker. And the Yap, the mnemonic device is for Young Artist Program Tracker. And I'm at the age right now where I'm still looking for a young artist program. So I would be great to seek more main stage possibilities like the one that I had in Pensacola. But realistically speaking, I know that the industry still sees me in a young artist position. I'm okay with that. So that's where they see me. I need to make sure that I fit that and deliver that, that I'm seeking that. Because if I'm, there's just no point in doing the other thing. It would be a waste of time. So this website has literally every opportunity in the world. I'm not exaggerating, in the world, in Germany, in Switzerland, in the United States, in China, in wherever. And it's every opera company, every competition, anything that anybody is seeking. Hey, I need a soprano for these months, or I need a young artist soprano to come in and do X role, or I need this, or we're looking for that, or whatever. Kind of like a Craigslist for singers. So I'm often do all of my casting a wide net through that. And the way that looks like is you don't just apply to auditions and get them. Unfortunately, doesn't work like that. Mm-hmm. So what you have to do, what I do, what every singer does, is they prepare for about a year or more. They prepare what's called an audition aria package. Mm-hmm. So these are generally 5 songs in generally 5 different languages in generally 5 different styles that showcase different aspects of your voice. So there's usually a fast song. There's usually something that shows coloratura. There's usually, X, Y, and Z. You prepare that package to the best of your possibility, also keeping in mind that there's one through line, that you're selling to the industry. I'm X type of singer, you know, here's my 5 things that show why I'm X type of singer. Then you build your resume, you get, sometimes you need references, sometimes you need letters of recommendation, and you submit these materials electronically to these companies to ask them to hear you in an audition. If you are successful, they will invite you to an audition. And then once you're at that audition, then, you know, you pray to the gods and hopefully everything turns out. So that's kind of how I've been doing everything. And that's kind of like the industry standard about how you go about seeking opportunities. Although I will say, now that I think about it, all of my opportunities that I have had have not come from auditions, now that I think about it. At all. They have never come from these Yap Tracker things. I've gotten great auditions. I've gotten high level auditions. I've gotten really, really incredible, amazing opportunities to sing for really great people in the industry. But the jobs that I've gotten have not been from that kind of setting. It's been from my networking. It's been from somebody calling somebody and saying, hey, you know, I have this person, she's free, you're looking for, why don't you call her? And yeah, so the idea is that I keep growing that web so that as I keep auditioning, maybe, you know, it'll come to a point where the people that I'm singing for have heard who I am, or somebody on my resume. Like I just auditioned for Michigan Opera a couple months ago. It went very well. And it was one of the first times where I was like, yes, because there were a couple of people on the panel, but the music director asked me afterwards, oh, you worked with so-and-so in Miami. Oh my gosh. Well, how'd you feel about working with so-and-so? How was your experience? Oh, it was great, blah, blah, blah. Well, say hello to them. Make sure that they, you know, that we're thinking about them. Oh yeah, absolutely. Great. And, you know, I didn't get the job, but they were interested in the circle that I was creating. And, that counts for a lot. It seems very abstract, but they'll remember me. And next time I sing for them, there will be a connection. So, yeah.
Or the next time the director is picking the music for the next season, they might think, oh, well, she auditioned last time, maybe she'll audition again this time. And I can pick this music knowing that I have someone that will possibly do this.
Yeah, and auditions it's a very strange beast. Auditioning it's a skill, and it's not like performing. It's completely different. But what I wanted to say is that a lot of the times it's not about how you sang. A lot of the times it is, but it really sometimes is really not about that. It's about,
I think it's probably just more expected that you're going to sing well.
Yeah. But a lot of the times it's just people's preferences. You know, people will want a certain look, or people will want a certain color. You know, they're thinking about casting with a certain tenor or a certain mezzo, and if the mezzo and the soprano are sisters in the show, maybe they're gonna want some voices that are completely different in timbre. Do you guys know what timbre is? The color of an instrument. Or maybe they'll want super similar timbres. So you can go in there and completely slay, but if it's not the right timbre for the mezzo that they want to cast, then it really doesn't matter, because they don't, you know what I mean? It's just sometimes it just comes down to these sorts of things.
Sure. Okay. What's the worst job decision you've ever made having to do with music?
Well, I don't think I've had one just yet, but here's what I'll say. It seems very glamorous what I do, but most people don't realize it's really not that glamorous. So, for example, when I was working with Pensacola Opera, I was on stage a lot. I was working professionally a lot. I had amazing costumes. It was just an amazing, amazing experience in every aspect of it. But there were certain aspects of the job that were very difficult and very not glamorous. For example, the young artists were expected to do a lot of the heavy lifting for the company for maybe not the best pay. And a lot of that included outreach. And outreach is something that I believe in, that fills my heart and my soul, and I think is very important, because if we don't go out into the community and spread our message and spread our light and spread our joy for music making and music, we won't have an audience. But where I'm trying to get at is that part of our outreach, and I think this was the bane of everybody's existence, and I'm sorry to say this, is that we had a children's show that we had to put on. Yeah. And it was a children's opera. It sounds great, but after we did 189 performances of this children's opera in a 3-month span. Yeah. So that's a lot, you guys. Like, imagine singing something 189 times to 250 elementary school kids who are screaming and picking the burgers and you know, so sometimes you're in these situations where you're like, this is not what I expected. This is not, you know, glamorous and as beautiful and like unicorns and rainbows and butterflies as I had hoped. But that's okay, because there are moments where you are like, okay, this is worth it. You know what I mean? And there are other moments where you're like, I want to kill myself. But yeah, so that's one of those moments where you think back and you're like, oh my God, get me out of here. I don't want to keep doing this. You know what I mean?
Right. What people or places were important to you in becoming an opera singer?
What people or places?
Yeah, like what helped you choose that and make that your path of becoming an opera singer? Because you already said that, like, in high school, you were really kind of headed in the jazz direction. I mean, it was your junior and senior year. So something must have happened around senior year then, I guess, that kind of made you decide, you know what, I'm going to go actually the opposite route and focus more on classical.
I think if I really think about it and I simplify it, there was always a teacher involved. There was always an educator with experience telling me, hey, I've seen your jazz concerts. You are amazing. You are so great. But there's this other side of you that I know if you develop has the potential for, you know, more possibilities. And I think it's worthwhile that you at least try and see. I believe in you. And here's how you're going to do it. Here's how we're going to help you see if this is for you. Okay. So there was always an educator, and even in grad school, my grad school teacher helped me a lot, because there has always been a sense of like, oh my gosh, can I do it? Can I do it? You know, every artist has that kind of thing in their minds, you know, everybody, even the most successful people. Because it comes to a point where these super highly successful people are not competing against their competition, but in a way they're competing against their name. They're competing against, okay, well, what is Beyonce supposed to bring today to the show? You know what I mean? And, you know, Beyonce is a normal person. She can have an off day, but people don't expect that. So it was, again, my teachers, and particularly my
She's just a machine.
Yeah, well, she's a terrible example because she's perfect. But you know, everybody that's not Beyonce is not perfect. So anyways, it was always a teacher. And even in grad school, my teacher just really said, just keep going at it. Just keep going at it. This is what you need to do. I believe in you. I see your talent, and I recognize your hard work. Just keep going. Don't lose the faith. So there's always an educator there pushing me along.
Cool. Very cool. Do you have any hobbies that you love just as much as singing? If so, what are they?
Singing is all consuming. But when I have a few seconds or a few moments where I want to disconnect, I love watching movies. I know that sounds, I love watching movies.
Okay.
And I love cooking.
Cooking.
And I love dancing. I don't really get to do it that much, but I really love dancing. I love it.
Very cool. Very cool. So what places have you ended up traveling to as a result of your career?
Yeah, I've traveled all over the US for auditions, all over, wherever you can think of. I mean, I've been to Wisconsin. But I haven't, there are a couple places where I haven't been to because of singing, but I've traveled a lot. And then internationally, I spent 2 months in Italy studying with a very famous Italian soprano. And then I told you guys I went to Poland. This, that seems like 6 months ago, this January, I had my first European opera house audition, which was a whirlwind because I flew there and then the next day I auditioned and then I came back, which seems like not a big deal, but it's a huge deal because the time difference is insane and you have jet lag and it's just not an ideal situation. But that was in Vienna. And really cool thing, I didn't know this at the moment, and I'm so glad I didn't because I was already super nervous, was that I sang in the theater where Beethoven lived for a year and premiered his third symphony on the stage where I auditioned. So that was really cool. But I'm really happy I didn't know that at the moment because I could not have handled that. But yeah, it was cool.
Very cool. Where did you go to college?
I went to Florida International University.
No, FIU, right down the street, huh?
Yeah, right down the street. And wherever you guys end up going to college, if you end up doing music, it does not matter where you get your degree from. It matters who you study with. You have to find a great teacher, and that teacher needs to help you and just aid you. And it's all about your teacher. If you go to Juilliard and have a terrible teacher, that does not help you whatsoever.
What's your favorite part about your career?
My favorite part about my career is obviously performing. But why? Because I think the reason why I got into this, not obviously the love that I have for music, but I always felt like I had something inside that I needed to express and share with other people, like a light. And I love those moments where I feel safe enough. It doesn't always happen, but where I feel safe enough with an audience to kind of unzip myself and really be vulnerable and share something really intimate with that audience. That to me is like the reason why I do it. And that's my favorite part. And that can be on a big stage, or it could be in the most intimate place.
That's so funny. Like us and some of the 8th grade voice lessons, because we're all on like virtual right now. So there's not a lot of like able to do full out class choir things. Zoom doesn't even allow for you to do that. It overloads the system.
I know.
So we're doing like private lessons and such. And so that's been an ongoing theme in a lot of our private sessions, is that vulnerability, like allowing yourself to become vulnerable, and how do you get to that point?
And that's something that's really why, now that you say it, it's really why opera attracted me so much, because it is the rawest, most heightened human emotions are expressed in opera. Everything is exaggerated. So it's like all of those vulnerabilities are like multiplied 1,000 times. And I just remember thinking, wow, in my everyday life, people are often so scared of that, or so put off by that. Oh no, we don't want to see that. Or, oh my God, that's too much, girl, that's too much, tone it down. And I feel like in opera, it's expected that you are just, tell me, how do you feel? And then you go off on an aria about it. So that's why. That's my favorite.
Cool. What is your favorite memory of being in South Miami Middle?
Well, what comes to mind is my teacher. I'm like, oh, my teacher was so good.
Dr. Denny,
But
right?
caroling competition, that was always such an exciting thing to like work towards. And we always used to do really well. So that doesn't hurt either. But it was always such a cool feeling to come together during Christmas time to share this music that everybody loves. You know what I mean? They love to sing. People love to hear it. And you're coming together during the most beautiful time of the year, sharing music, really good music too. So that was always something that we always used to look forward to so much.
Awesome. What do you do when the going gets tough?
That's very difficult. Yeah, it gets tough, you guys. Like it's tough. But I think the most important thing, I was just listening to a Zoom conference with one of probably the most famous soprano right now at the moment. And she was kind of speaking to this. And it was a relief to kind of see that somebody at this level who has, literally achieved everything that she ever hoped and, dreamed about, she still struggles with this. And she says, don't try not to list all your obstacles, because you think that once you reach a certain level, or you think that once you get X job, or you think once this or whatever, or you sing for such and such person, you think that there won't be an obstacle. But she says, if you start listing all of your obstacles, you will be sitting there for a year and still having a list. So it's really important to, sounds easier said than done, but really stay positive. And she said, always remind yourself why you sing. No matter what, all the noise that, oh, you can't, or oh my God, are you sure? Or just remember why you do it. And my grad school teacher, which was a very famous, he was like a 4-time Grammy Award winning recording opera singer. He's a really fantastic career. Always told me, Evelyn, remember,
He was the one
there's
that was
only one
on Wednesday, right?
He was the one at the interview. He said, Evelyn, remember, there's only one you. There's only one you. And everybody wants to discover the next you, the next Elizabeth, the next Javier, the next Kyra, the next Ciara, the next Genesis. Everybody's waiting for the next Beyonce, you know what I mean? Not Beyonce, but they want a completely different, they want somebody to break in and, like Billie Eilish broke in or whoever, you know what I mean? She's completely different. And everybody loves her for it. And she's unapologetic and she's vulnerable and she's expressive. And so people are waiting for you. They're waiting for you to come in and just do your thing. So I always try to remember that. I always try to remember why I sing, and stay positive and have a very select group of people that will remind you and help you get out of your insecurity or your hole. Sometimes we go into a deep spiral. So it's important to have those people that will cheer you on. And it won't always be your family. Sometimes it'll be your other colleagues that get it. Hey girl, I get it, but you know what? You've been doing this and this and that, and I'm proud of you. I call my friends sometimes a lot, say, oh my God, I think I had this terrible audition. And they're like, you didn't, it's fine. And if you did, that's okay. Like, moving on. So it's really important. You have to build a strong support system, and you have to be, keep your mental and emotional space positive as you can.
What's the best piece of advice that you've ever been given?
Oh my gosh. That's a great question. I don't know. The best piece of advice. I think that the one I just said about remember that people are looking for the next to you. Mm-hmm. And only you can bring what you can bring. Nobody else can bring that. Maybe everybody can show up and sing the Star Spangled Banner, but nobody will sing it the same. Mm-hmm. You know what I mean? Yes. So if you really tap into what makes you, mm-hmm. and try to express that through what you're doing, maybe it'll touch somebody. Oh, another good piece of advice. This is an excellent piece of advice. Not everybody's going to like your voice. Some people will hate it. Absolutely hate it. My first year grad school teacher sat me down and said, I need to tell you something. Not everybody will like your voice. You need to get over that. And likewise, And that's not just for me, that's for everybody. Likewise, there will always be people that, those people, oh my God, they will love your voice, come hell or high water, come you cracking, come you whatever. They'll just think it's the best thing since sliced bread. So you have to be okay with that.
Cool. Okay, next question. Do you think being a Cuban-born singer has changed your experience in the music field in any way?
Yes. I think being Cuban born, because I have a Latin temperament and a Latin way of life and philosophy, whatever that means, has given me more freedom of expression, and maybe made me a little bit more kind of a braver to be myself, because Cubans are so loud and so in your face and everything. But on the opposite side, I have realized that I have to be careful about, unfortunately, about how that can be sometimes misconstrued or taken in the wrong way. I don't know if that makes any sense.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah. So you have to be cosmopolitan. You know what I mean? Hone your culture and celebrate it and all that stuff. But remember that this is a cosmopolitan field and we have to cater to different audiences. So we have to kind of be very flexible in the way that we speak to people and think about things and express our things. Depends. Know your audience, guys. Always know your audience.
All right. We have time for just one more question. So I'm looking through to see which one would be a great one to end on. I think I found it. And I think I'm going to go with it. Where is it? Here we go. Okay. So, do you ever get stage fright, and how do you deal
Yes. Yes. And that never goes away, you guys. It never goes away, because there's always a first time that you sing something. There's always a first role or a first time you're singing at an opera. You've never sung at this opera house before, or you've never sung for so-and-so. It never goes away. But it does get better. The more that you do it, the better you get at handling your nerves. And I think by far the best sort of thing that you can do to control your nerves is be prepared. Just be prepared and trust in the work that you've been doing. If you've been doing the work, chances are your body will just do it. Even if you feel like you're going to have a panic attack, your work will show up. Your work will show up for you. And it will be like, I got you, girl, you know, or I got you, boo, or whatever. And it'll show up, but you have to put in the work. It doesn't just miraculously appear in the moment of, you know, spotlight. But it does get better, and it doesn't go away, but you learn to deal with it. You just learn to cope with it.
That's awesome. Well, thank you for showing up to our interview here. We really appreciate it. A lot of gold nuggets there of information for us. So thank you so much for being here again. We'll give you a warm Wildcat welcome.
Thank you so much. It was a pleasure.
And once a Wildcat, always a Wildcat, like you say. And yeah, and gotten a lot of feedback on the interviews things here. You can see like thumbs ups are going on and hand claps and all that kind of stuff.
Thank you guys so much. It was a pleasure, really.
Thank you. Thank you.
You're welcome. Thank you guys so much for joining me today. And thank you to Mr. Firestone. You guys have an amazing teacher, okay? Love him and respect him and enjoy him, because he's amazing. I know him. I've known him for a very long time. So props to Mr. Firestone.
Thank you. Bye, guys. Have a great day. I'll see you guys next week. Ciao.
Bye, Mr. Firestone.
Bye, Mr. Firestone.
How do I leave? I don't know.
Mr. Firestone?
Yep, go ahead.
So for the sight reading factory, I had never figured out my password because I didn't know the email that I was using.
Yeah, so you just need to send me an email or a message through Edmodo in order to get
Yeah,
out.
I did.
You sent me an email?
No, I sent you a message through Edmodo.
Oh, well, do me a favor, send me an email because for some reason those messages, like I'm no longer even getting notifications of it just because the message indication has become like over 50, 60 messages now. And the other thing is like when I send out reminders or whatever through messages, for some reason it's clouding my message chat box as well. So now, even though it says I have these unread messages, I have no idea where they are because there are so many messages that have gone on between either reminders or reach outs or whatever, and I cannot find those chat messages. So best solution is email. And email is super easy, choironfire@dateschools.net.
Okay.
And then I'll send it back to you. I'll say, oh, this is your username. If you need to know what your password is, request that as well. And well, don't request what is your password because I can't actually tell that. You have to tell me what you want your password to be. Okay?
Okay.
Cool.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye.